Welcome to Herf Zone Live, the show that is unlike any other cigar show, where we have the most eclectic lineup of guests, of which some smoke cigars and some who don't. Either way, we bring you the best content weekly. Herf Zone Live is sponsored by StogieLives.com. If you're looking for a social media site that's different than any other social media site out there, you definitely got to check out StogieLives.com and tell them Shirtless Mike sent you. Follow Hearthstone Live on there and all that good stuff. So I hope everyone has had an amazing day today because I sure have. I had to break into one of the cigars that I got from today's guest, Chris Turner from NOMOS Cigars. So I got the hat that I've had for a bit, so I had to rock that, and I broke into that while I was at work, and now I am breaking into this. Now I got some more waiting in the wings there and everything. So I see some people starting to join us already. So we're just going to get this show started for you today. We're going to waste no time. So, yeah, without further ado, waiting patiently in a Cigar Hustlers podcast green room, we have one of the two owners of NOMOS Cigars, Mr. Chris Turner. What's going on, brother?
Hey, Mike, my guy, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's a beautiful night here in Florida. We were talking before the show, to add context to everybody out there watching, and you said it was in like the 50s and wet in New York right now.
Yeah, unfortunately. So I'm actually in my office
Oh, okay.
smoking. My wife won't let me smoke in the house, and I can't go out in the backyard today. So this was the best place to have the interview. But I'm
We
glad
all
to be here, man.
Oh yeah, same here, man. I'm so glad you decided to come on and join me. And this is marking your first official cigar interview. Your partner did a radio interview that wasn't really cigar related, but he's on the radio because of the cigars. So welcome to the cigar podcast world now. And now you're gonna start making the circuit now that you started with me here.
Absolutely, man. This certainly is our inaugural interview. So I do appreciate it. It's great to be here. Looking forward to sharing with you and your listeners or viewers.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we definitely got a few people watching now. So if you're watching right now, make sure you share this link, for YouTube, on your Facebook page, wherever you can share the link. The numbers are steady climbing here, and everybody that cannot watch live will obviously catch it after the show. So I'm not going to waste any time while we have a live audience here. So let's start off. Just tell me about a little bit about yourself, how you grew up and stuff like that. We take each topic, and so I got a question for everything. So just start about where you're from, how you grew up, and a little bit of stuff like that.
No, I appreciate that. So, native New Yorker, man, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, in a section of Brooklyn known as East New York. East New York, Brooklyn is the easternmost part of Brooklyn, which borders the borough of Queens. And definitely inner city, urban area. I grew up in public housing, proud to say it. Some really good experiences growing up. And, the sum total of those experiences make me who I am today, good, bad, and otherwise. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, most definitely. So you're an attorney in addition to being a cigar brand owner. So tell me about what made you want to get into practicing law, and what kind of law do you practice?
For sure. So I'll start off by saying over the course of my 20 plus year career in law now, I practiced in a variety of areas, from entertainment and criminal defense to what I'm doing currently, real estate and wills, trust, and estates. So in real estate, I represent buyers, sellers, banks across the board, and wills, trust, and estates. I represent the estates of obviously deceased individuals and distributing their assets, and that part of the process of practice is a good practice. I like the surrogates court, but growing up in the inner city, I did see certain inequities, and I think one of the reasons why I got into law is because I wanted to know essentially what my rights were, right, and I wanted to be able to advocate. And so I think a lot of that comes from that. And then, let me not leave out the fact that lawyers do okay money wise.
Oh yeah.
So that was also a consideration.
Okay. And when did cigars come into the picture for you? Has it been something that you've always done? How long have you been smoking cigars?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. My partner, Gerald Miles, introduced me to cigars. Gerald is an attorney. We also practice out of the same office. But Gerald is my partner in NOMOS Cigars. He introduced me to cigars some 8 years ago. Prior to then, I had not, smoked cigars on a regular basis. It's about 8 years ago, he introduced me to cigars. He had been smoking cigars much longer. And at that point, I would say he was already an aficionado with a refined palate. So he sort of brought me along. I think that, one of the things that I did early on, also invited by Gerald, is I started to attend cigar fests. And, in those cigar fests, you walk out of there with a duffel bag full of cigars, various shapes, sizes, blends, strengths, the deal.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up real quickly through those experiences, starting off with a very mild, light cigar and quickly graduating to, mediums and stronger cigars.
Oh, okay. Now, what cigar events, like major cigar events, have you been to so far?
Yeah, so the one that we attended a lot prior to COVID was the Cigar Fest in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know if you're familiar with that one, but that
Oh
was just
yeah, the one that CI does, and then they just changed it up recently, and and all that. I've heard a lot about it. I just haven't been up to Pennsylvania though.
well, that's a great event. I mean, you come out of there with so many cigars and giveaways. I mean, there's a fee for it, obviously, but I think the fee is well worth it with the numbers of cigars and brands that you get introduced to. And now I can say that we're also doing our own cigar fest. We're attending the Cigar Fest in the Dominican Republic. We have a booth there, and that's June 4th and 5th. My partner Gerald Miles will be at that one, while I'll be here in New Jersey in Woodbridge at the New Jersey Cigar Fest on also Saturday, June 4th and Sunday, June 5th. So, we're now attending Cigar Fest, and I'm on the other side of the table. And it gives me a unique perspective because I remember what it was like going to Cigar Fest myself and, talking to brand owners and, hearing their backstories and getting to smoke their cigars. And so that's one of the parts of this process that I really enjoy, sharing those conversations, meeting various people, and introducing the brand into customers' consciousness. We're committed to, pushing the brand and getting it out there because
Oh,
we know we have a
absolutely.
great product.
Absolutely, and that's the reason why you're here, because you do have a great product and all that. And I feel the same way, just sticking to the cigar events thing. Like I've been going to the Great Smoke for like the past 3 or 4 years or so, and I started off, a lot of people knew who I was, but now it's at the level I went this past year, or this couple months ago in February, and this year I threw an official birthday bash, and
Nice.
and I brought people out on a Wednesday. Like it wasn't promoted by smoking, it was just me promoting it. I just had to go ahead and found my own sponsor to sponsor the music and all that, and it was pretty major. And then I was at the Great Smoke actual event on Saturday, and I was walking around shirtless, and everybody wanted to take pictures, and I'm like, so this is how all the big guys feel. So it's definitely a surreal experience.
Well,
So
you're joining the club there, Mike,
I think we both are. It's good. It's good to join that club.
for sure.
So before we get into more about Nomos, what are some of your favorite cigar brands? Just outside of your own brand, even if it's not a specific brand, what are
Right.
some of the favorite tobaccos that you like to smoke on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, I like Olivas. Olivas is a great brand, particularly the Melanio. And I also smoke AJ Fernandez at times, the New World box press. I do like a box press cigar. So, I get around to various brands here and there. But I think for me, My sweet spot tends to be a medium to medium plus cigar, and one that sort of is close to the characteristics of a Nomo cigar. And in that, I mean, I like flavor, but I like smoothness. I don't like any harsh tones. And so that's what I tend to do most.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you and your partner Gerald, you started NOMOS Cigars in 2019. How did you meet your business partner Gerald Miles? Are you guys partners in law too, or you just practice out of the same building?
We just practice out of the same building.
Okay.
But we met probably 20 years ago here in Rockland County, and became friends first, which is very important before you go into partnership with someone, kind of knowing them on a deep personal level, because partnerships can be difficult. But we've had a great partnership, I think in part because we have a solid foundation.
Yeah.
So yeah, we met 20 years ago. We're not partners. We do practice out of the same building. And over time, we started to travel together to various events, and took some trips together, some attorney respite trips after the stressful profession. And one of those trips was to the Dominican Republic, where we were able to sit with manufacturers and go to different establishments with cigar rollers and try their cigars, and really started to learn the foundations then of what would become a business for us. And I would say, although we launched officially last July of 2021, we had been working on the business for a few years prior to that. And of course, the pandemic right there in the middle of it didn't help.
Yeah.
Because that shut down our travel to the Dominican Republic, because our cigars are manufactured at La Hora, in Santiago in the Dominican Republic, Tamboril, to be specific. And also our boxes are made there, our rings are made in the Dominican Republic. So, the pandemic didn't help us, but on the flip side of that, we weren't stagnant either. We started to put together the foundations of what we would need to launch the business in earnest. And for us, as I said, last summer was the official launch, but prior to that, we worked on this business and particularly developing the blend for the cigar. Our cigar is not a white label cigar that someone else made and we slapped the NOMOS ring on it. We were essential parts of the process in the creation of this cigar. Now, we're fortunate enough to have one of the world's foremost master blenders out of La Hora, Manuel Anoa. But when we arrived at La Hora, we knew what we wanted. So we were able to be integral in the process and guiding that process. And we went through several iterations of cigar to arrive at, this NOMOS Toro 6x56. The other thing that's important here is, prior to arriving at La Hora, we'd worked with smaller cigar manufacturers and cigar makers. And through that process, really served as our research and development process. Because one of the things we were able to do through that process is develop a proprietary aging process that we use. And we refer to it as the NOMOS aging process, or nap. So we like to say our cigars take a nap prior to being smoked by our customers. And it is a proprietary process. And we know it because we're the only one doing it at La Hora, and La Hora had not seen our process prior to us bringing it to them. And as a matter of fact, La Hora at first did not want to incorporate our process in their aging room. And it took quite a bit of convincing, but what helped us is we had proof of concept, because we had, bunches of research and development cigars that we were able to bring into La Hora for them to try. And that really helped us along.
That's interesting. So you kind of answered some of the questions, but I'm gonna that I had, but we're gonna kind of expound on it a little more because, just to get that context there. So, like, coming upon, going to the Dominican Republic, you've worked with some smaller factories. Now, you were talking about that it was like your research and development phase. Before you got to La Aurora, like, was it just, you trying to experiment on learning how to blend before you got to the big time guy then?
Well, I think it ended up being that way, but I think part of it is, I think if you look today and you attempted to find a manual on the cigar business, you probably can't find one.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can find, you know, books that give you instructionals on different types of tobacco and different size cigars and what's the proper etiquette to smoke a cigar and cut a cigar. But the business 101, it doesn't exist. So we really had to work hard in breaking down doors to figure out how this business works.
Hmm.
And I think in part, one of the reasons why we moved on from some of the smaller outfits is what you realize is that the smaller outfits just don't have the resources and manpower to keep up with where we want to take our cigar ultimately. The other thing is because they have less resources, they make great cigars, but those cigars sometimes suffer from inconsistencies. And it's not because they're not good, it's just because they don't have the resources.
Hmm.
And in this business, the worst thing you can have is a cigar that's inconsistent.
Hmm.
Whether that's an inconsistent burn, like a canoeing or something like that, or inconsistent flavors, you just don't want that. And so, we realized in this crowded, competitive market that we had to put out a product that could compete from day one.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we moved on. But I can't say that we knew that ahead of time, right? Because there's
Yeah.
no manual.
Oh, absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
coming into La Aurora, did you already have connections inside La Aurora, or did you just kind of, just walk in, and ask to speak to somebody? You started working with Manuel and Noah and all that. Like, how did that situation all come about from the beginning and and all that?
Yeah, our contacts were very much on the periphery. No direct hand to hand contacts. We sort of knocked on some doors, did some research, started meeting some people that way, and then developed connections. But those connections were pretty much ours from the get go. But we had to develop those. So right, so no one walked us in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, like the very first time you ever met with Manuel and Noah, was, let me see how to put this here. Very first time you ever met with him, was it, him immediately, or did they just say this is the guy you need to see, when you're trying to come up with the blends? Like you're sitting there in the office, you had to show him, let me, however, I'm trying to say this here. Let me just make sure I'm gonna say this right. So, was he the first point of connect once you got in your foot in the door and then you started working with him directly, or did they just pass you off to him because they knew that he could do what you're expecting to do? That's
So
what I
let me
mean.
say this: you can't get passed off to Manuel because he's pretty high on the food chain there in La Orda. But one of the things that we've always believed in is this notion of uh, business redundancy. Like you've got to have contingency planning. If one thing doesn't work out, you've got to have another. So at the same time that we were meeting with La Orda, we met with other manufacturers. I won't name those manufacturers, but they're notable. And we met with several. But once we were in at La Order and we were able to explain exactly what it is we wanted to do, Manuel was who we were introduced to because he is the master blender. And, we are very happy that Manuel was the person we were introduced to because, we did go through several iterations of the cigar, but Manuel was fabulous. Not only in the kind of education he provided throughout the process and his openness, but his willingness to understand and appreciate what we desired in a cigar. And when he hit it right on the head. I mean, what you're smoking right now, Mike, is exactly what we wanted.
And it's an amazing cigar. It's really good, just a nice, it just gets you where you want to go when it comes to smoking cigars. I got to make sure I'm paying attention to you talking in the interview because this is how relaxing this cigar is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about a cigar. We have our logo for our brand, and you did have it up on your media. So I definitely appreciate that. And by the way, that was a great media poster that you put up in preparation for this interview. I appreciate that. You
Oh,
made me
no
look
problem.
good. You got my
Hey, I mean, people have to know what you look like because you barely see any pictures of you on Instagram, and it's like,
Yeah.
you got to be exclusive with everything. So I had to make sure tell people what you look like.
Absolutely. So, you talked about, how a cigar mellowed you out. Well, our logo, the NOMOS logo, is a scale. And it is an homage to the justice system in a sense, because we're both lawyers. But you'll notice that the scales are even. And what the message that we're sending there is that those even scales are very much like smoking a good cigar. It's equilibrium. It levels out your life. You know what I mean? You've had a hard day, or you've had a stressful day, just like you're feeling now. You sit back with that right cigar and you get that equilibrium, you get that feel that, it's unmatched, it's unparalleled.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So that was going to be my next question about your about the logo and everything. But what's the story behind naming your brand Nomos? Like, what is that, like an acronym for something? And um, you've already explained the second part of that question, so I figured I'll put that out there. Like, what is Nomos mean and everything? Like, what's that?
Sure. So Nomos is a Greek god, and he's the Greek deity of law.
Okay.
Right? So now you get the connection, right? Two
Yeah.
lawyers who start a cigar company. So everything is for us, those connections that weave together to tell the story are very important to us. And we think it's a major part of the success that we've experienced to date. And it also is very compelling when we talk to customers around the country, when we travel around the country. But yeah, so Nomos is a Greek deity of law, and as you can see the logo, and you have the hat on there, and so
Boom.
the logo is legal scales, and those legal scales are balanced. And that, as I said, denotes the equilibrium that you experience when you're smoking a great cigar. The other thing with our logo that was very important is a lot of the rings in the market today on cigars, and you see them, they're beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're very ornate, but they're so busy and so crowded with artistic content that you almost need a magnifying glass to make out all the elements. Well, we wanted some space in our logo so that when you look at it, you can really see what you're looking at. And so that was very important to us. I'm sure down the line, as we, have iterations of the ring and the logo, we'll do some different things. But right now, our inaugural cigar, we wanted some space in that logo so that you could really take a look at it, and that this could be some real brand recognition and awareness so that it wouldn't be an easy ring to forget. I don't know about you, but I remember early on in smoking cigars, one of the things that my partner, Gerald Miles, advised me to do, and this was very important advice for a new cigar smoker that I was at the time. He said, when you smoke the cigar that you like, make sure you take the ring off and keep it so that you'll remember. And that was vital. And you really have to do that with some of the rings in the market because they're so ornate and busy.
Yeah.
That, but ours, it's space there, so you can see what you're seeing. You can make out what we have going on there.
Oh yeah, most definitely, absolutely. It's very simple, but it's recognizable, and it's definitely very unique, you know, and that's what kind of stuck out to me. I'm not really like I'm about how the cigar smokes and tastes and everything. The band is like secondary. Sometimes, you
Yeah,
know, a band will grab your attention, but I mean, it's cool to hear the history behind it and everything. So, and this is you guys' only cigar currently, you know, that you have out. You just started with the one. Are you guys planning on expanding in the future, sticking with, you know, like the law theme, you know, because some brands, they have different themes to them. So, you know, you started off with the law theme. Is that going to just continually be a trend for you guys?
you know what? I'm sure that we definitely have plans to expand the line within the Nomos logo. And you know, we definitely will have variations of this logo and perhaps do something different. I mean, one of the things that we've got planned in the works, and I'm not going to tip too much to this because I haven't discussed this with my partner.
Yeah.
Is we have a special age blend coming down the line, but I'm just going to tease you with that one. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm sure we'll do some different things, with that ring.
Oh,
Absolutely.
awesome. Now,
Absolutely.
awesome. Most definitely. What was the next thing here? So, you know, you talked a little while ago, and, you know, I'm not asking you to spill all your secrets though, but, you know, part of the well, actually, I'll ask this question after because I just remember the other question. It will kind of like lead into it. So, this rapper is a Cameroon rapper. Is this this rapper directly grown in Cameroon?
Yes, it is. It's African Cameroon.
Okay,
Very important to us.
awesome. Yeah, because sometimes people will have, you know, it's possible to have a Cameroon, you know, rapper, but it didn't actually come from Cameroon. So it's like
Oh
there's
yeah, and Cameroon is grown in other countries now for sure. But the characteristic of a Cameroon rapper that really drew us to this is, one of our customers, I remember in smoking a cigar, he described the cigar as silky. And I think that's one of the characteristics of a fine Cameroon wrapper. It's very flavorful, but you don't have these harsh intensities.
yeah,
And that's what we really like because our cigar is a medium cigar, but it's very smooth. And that really goes to what our goal is. One of the things that I really dislike about some cigars is when after I smoke it, I've got an ashy taste on my palate.
yeah.
I love the flavor to linger on my palate, but I don't like the ashiness to linger on my palate.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and that's one of the things that we really worked on with the cigar. And we learned that the Cameroon, the flavor is delicious, but it also provides a very smooth and silky smoke.
I'm starting to feel, you know, when you said silky, like that's not something I typically think about, but now that I'm smoking this, kind of has that silkiness to it, you know,
Yeah,
which I never really think of the term silky when I'm smoking a cigar, but just like when you're getting other flavor notes out of a cigar, it's just whatever something reminds you of. And
there you go.
I mean, they're pretty much spot on with it. Now, so the next question that I had, you know, which was, you know, because you kind of touched on it, but I'm not asking you to, you know, the mad scientist to give away all their secrets, but, you know, you talked about the NAP process, the NOMOS aging process. Uh, Expound on that a little bit more. Like, what specifically do you guys do that you describe it as NAP, and why did La Aurora initially not want to use that process until they caught the drift from you guys directly?
So, unfortunately, it's really difficult for me to describe it to you without
Well, the
telling
best you
you the
can. Yeah,
essential.
the best you
So,
can. If you don't want
yes.
to, that's fine.
Well, here it is. I mean, what I can tell you is that it's our aging process. So it's what we do in aging our cigars. And it's very difficult to provide more detail without giving away the essential elements. So I can't really do that. But I will tell you this. And believe me, everywhere we go, we get the same question. And, it's very funny because, we'll have some customers come to our launch events and they'll pass the table once and we'll talk to them and then they'll come back around. So what's that aging process? So, I can't really get into it. Then they'll come back around again. What's that aging process? I still can't tell you, man. I can't tell you. But I will tell you this. The reason why we know it's proprietary and hasn't been done before is because La Order had not seen it before. And if you know anything about the history of La Order, they're one of the oldest manufacturers in the world. I mean, they've been around well over 100 years now. So they hadn't seen it. So we knew that we were on to something. And, when you talk about the characteristics of our cigar, now, obviously, Manuel and Noah being a master blender, Manuel knows how to pair leaves together that once aged, bring out this essence in cigars that people love. But we believe that process, along with our aging process, really brings out an additional essence in this cigar. Its smoothness, its flavorfulness, its nuanced notes throughout each third of the cigar. Every now and again in this cigar, because we have Nicaraguan tobacco in our filler, you may get some pepper at the very beginning, but that dissipates relatively quickly. And we do attribute a lot of that complexity to our aging process. So unfortunately, I can't give you the nuts and bolts, and I know I'm talking around it, but
yeah, no, it is what it is. You got your secrets. That's I didn't anticipate, but sometimes I do get some exclusives on Herf Zone Live. It's you're new in the process. You don't want anybody to jack that idea. Which is totally it's understandable.
You got it.
So you guys work directly. You're not just getting samples and all that type of stuff. Like, how often since you started the brand have you been to the Dominican Republic? I know since you officially started, in 2021, it was like the middle of COVID still and everything. And like, how often have you guys traveled there now? And how often are you going to be planning on returning, in the future?
Well, I will tell you, anytime you have a business and you're manufacturing and you're creating internationally, it provides its own unique challenges, because to have a successful business is my belief that you can't defer many of the tasks. Obviously we're not manufacturers, but we're not keen on having middlemen between us and our manufacturers and our other service providers.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we've got to know the business from the ground up. It's the only way to maximize your chances of success. So just to answer your question, we're in the Dominican Republic a lot.
Okay.
Last year, I was probably in the Dominican Republic 6 or 7 times.
Okay.
And some of those times I was there alone, and sometimes with my partner, Gerald. And then other times Gerald is there with me and alone. So when you look at how much the both of us are there individually, we're there quite a bit in the Dominican Republic. Absolutely. It's extremely important. And, the other benefit is logistically for us, fortunate for us, we're in New York, and, JFK to Santiago or Puerto Plata, you're looking at 3 hours and 15 minutes, 3 hours and 20. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not a bad flight at all.
Mm-mm.
Excuse me. A lot of boutique brands don't necessarily get down to their factory as much. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're just having somebody produce it for them, and they just kind of like get samples back and forth and everything. So it's really unique to talk to somebody who gets down there as often as they possibly can. Like, that's like the level. It's probably even more than like what like a Steve Soccer, some other bigger boutique guys are getting down to the factory. So that's pretty impressive right there.
Yeah, it was very important to us to understand the nuts and the bolts of the business from A to Z. And as a result of that, I'll tell you, in this short time we've been launched, we've been approached 3 separate times by notable individuals to white label cigars for them. In other words, create, you know what I mean. In other words, create a blend for them and slap their ring on it. And we have not agreed to do that at this point because our singular focus is really promoting our own brand and making it a staple in the awareness of the consumer. You know, brand building is paramount to us right now.
Absolutely, especially you got started during COVID or right before COVID officially launched during COVID. Like, I mean, not a lot of people can say that, you know, but we are in a second boom, so
well, that's what I was gonna say. You know, there's an
it's kind of an ideal time. I mean,
right. Well, that's what I was gonna say. There's an irony there, because you know during COVID, as you said, cigar sales went through the roof. A lot of the cigars that you were trying to get were back ordered.
Yep.
Now you did have sort of a concurrence of events, and the events were demand went up while at the same time production output slowed down because one of the things about the Dominican Republic is during COVID, and we traveled there. Not during the beginnings of COVID, but once COVID let up a bit, but there were still restrictions. The Dominican Republic was very strict on its COVID regulations, curfews and the like. And when we would visit our factory, La Hora, there was a process: masks, sanitizing of the hands, all that stuff. That's the irony there. COVID, you would think that, things would, decrease as far as demand, but demand actually went up while at the same time, the workforces within the manufacturers' factories, the output went down because COVID regulations in the Dominican Republic dictated that they had to work with a reduced workforce to make sure that there were spacing requirements. So, there was a lot of that going on. And part of the calculus in our mind, part of what went through our minds was that we had to get down there and get in line, right? Because, manufacturing works on a schedule.
Yep.
And generally works on a first come, first serve schedule. They get out as the orders come in. So we knew that we had to get in that line and get our products in there. And so it's very important, but it's a time that I'll never forget overall, the pandemic. But I even have more stories to tell because of, traveling there during the pandemic just to get our brand up and running so that we would be prepared to launch, in August of 2021 as we did.
Oh yeah. And since you did launch during the time that you launched, like if you could survive that, you could pretty much survive other things, that come your way, as far as like being a brand and everything.
Right.
So some boutique brands, they work with multiple cigar factories in order to diversify their portfolio. Have you and Gerald ever considered working with another factory in the future, in addition to La Aurora, to produce a completely different cigar with a different profile? Or do you want to keep it simple and work with, that single factory? Or has that been something that you haven't even thought about? It's too soon to think about.
Well, one of the things, we have relationships with other factories, other notable factories. And it's because we get out and we network. Is that in our immediate short-term plans? Probably not. But, as a brand owner who wants to have fabulous products out there that people love, we're always looking for the best way to present that product to our consumers. So if, that's an imperative and it dictates that in the future, I'm sure that it's something that we may consider, but nothing that we've discussed at this point.
Okay. And do you guys sell direct to consumers, or do you have your cigars in a lot of brick and mortar shops, or both? Are you kind of like doing both then?
Sure. So we're currently North Carolina, Maryland, and New Jersey.
Okay.
And we also sell direct to consumer through our website. And can I give our website address?
Yeah, it's also in the show description as well. So,
Sure.
but you can give that out
Sure.
as well.
So it's nomoscigars.com. NOMOS cigars.com. And also we met on Instagram. So, we do post content and videos and vignettes with our cigars with set to music and moving pictures. And our Instagram is also at NOMOS Cigars.
Absolutely, and if you look, if you follow me on Instagram, if you're watching this, you can. I've tagged them a bunch of times, to promote the show, and you guys definitely have to follow them because they got to get more followers out there. So, I mean, they're pretty active on the IG. That's where it's at now. If you want
Yeah,
to survive as a brand, you got to be on Instagram
for
nowadays.
sure.
Have you guys started working with reps or brokers yet to hit the road, or is it something that will come with time? Are you just kind of like calling shops or, um, you know, brokers or reps, however you want to put that?
Yeah, I mean, very good question. I think early on as the brand owners, and this sort of goes to our central philosophy as business people, is that before we start handing over um, those types of activities and responsibilities to others, we wanted to get some of that work done ourselves, so
Hmm.
that we could actually see how how this process works. So have we spoken with sales forces in the business and marketing? Absolutely, because that's all part of networking. Have
Hmm.
we engaged? No, not at this point, because as I said, in this immediate short term, we want to do some of that ourselves. And by the way, we one of the ways that we've made these relationships is by having launch events at retail shops. So we've had launch events in Florida, in North Carolina, in Maryland, in New Jersey, in Brooklyn, New York. So we've gotten out and around the country going to these retailers. And of course, that leads to a relationship. All those retailers are now carrying the brand. But it
Yeah.
also gives us an opportunity to get out, get around the country, see what it is to go into these shops and speak to the buyers at the stores and get to know them and get their feedback on the cigar. And so, but listen, that becomes a necessary process. You don't achieve the kind of success you want to in this business without engaging a sales rep and having a sales force out there to hit these regions periodically to keep the cigar, in the presence and knowledge of the retailers and their buyers. So definitely that's in the works, and we've already started those relationships. We just haven't engaged at this point.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, the launch events that you do, is that kind of basically like the equivalent of like a cut and light, where you bring product, and you basically whatever they sell, and if they decide to bring you in, they bring you in type thing.
Yes. So generally, the way our launch events work is we set up a table in the shop. We do free giveaways of our cigars because, again, we want to get them in the hands of the customers. We work with the retailers to also sell our cigars on that night. We generally like to pair our cigars with some kind of a spirit, a scotch or a bourbon. And at many of our launches, we've had exclusive brands come in and pair with us, which goes very well. And throughout the night, we spend the evening and we've got our signage up and around. Some of that content, by the way, is on our Instagram at NOMOS Cigars.
Okay.
You can go on there and see actual videos of what our launch events are like. And man, you and I spoke about this a little bit in the green room. It's amazing. You know what I mean? It doesn't get much better than introducing a cigar to customers and chopping it up. Having a good time
Exactly.
talking, man. I mean, what beats that, man? I mean, it's I'm working, but I'm having fun at the same time.
Hmm.
You can't beat it.
Oh, absolutely. Cannot beat it whatsoever. Now, And I know you got the videos and stuff on the Instagram. Like, what's the response been like, from consumers out there, at these cut and light events and everything? Like, is it just like amazement right away, or is it one of those things you have to really like pull them in, before they really start to engage more?
So I will tell you across the board, and I'm very proud to say it. We've received glowing reviews of this cigar across the board. And when I say across the board, that's from your novice cigar smoker to your aficionado, right? Now, some aficionados may say, I prefer a stronger cigar, but they'll say this is a fabulous cigar. But I'm looking forward to your strong cigar. So, the feedback we've gotten is that it's a phenomenal smoke. And I think that really speaks to being prepared to enter into an industry. And that's why it was so important. My partner, Gerald, he had the experience of smoking cigars for many years, being to many cigar fests. But even prior to us launching the business, I had 5 or so years of cigar smoking under my belt. And that's important because, along the way, and I talked to you a little bit about our research and development process and our experiences with smaller factories and small shops. You got to know when you taste a cigar that's not very good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to know that. You got to really have a palate that is very much mature in that way. Now, listen, someone can always say they don't like Cameroon or they don't like Indonesian Sumatran. But if you have a mature palate, you still know a good cigar. And for us, that was extremely important. If we were going to produce a middle of the road cigar, then we would have just continued to smoke cigars recreationally and just have fun that way, right? But one of the things that's not lost on us is we have a great time with this business, but it's a business,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's very important to us that we have a product that's top notch, and that we not cut any corners. And we're sticklers for that. We're very much sticklers for that. And what we find in the industry is that those who work with us, whether it's our manufacturers, whether it's the company that makes our rings, or they appreciate that kind of feedback. And it's been we've developed very good working relationships with our manufacturing partners.
Awesome. That's the way it should be. It's
Mhm.
just it's a process for sure. Um, what are your plans for the expansion of the brand? Do you hope to eventually make the brand into a full-time job, or do you plan to keep it a passion project to continue what you do until retirement and then make it full-time?
Right. Well, that's a good question. And, one of the benefits of practicing law for both me and my partner, we've been practicing law, each of us, more than 20 years at this point. So when you get to our point, at this point in your practice, if you've been doing the right thing, you've developed a client base, you've developed a real strong expertise in your areas of focus, and that allows you the ability to get outside the office and promote the brand. So we're not tied to a 9 to 5 desk.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, we're not in a business to have a passion project. We're definitely going to make this business such that we will have a very hard decision to make on whether we continue practicing law or move on and just work the business full time. And I will tell you, based on the strides that we've made over this short period of time, we're definitely moving in that direction pretty quickly.
Oh, most definitely. Now we're gonna get to the portion of the show here. I do a lot of times. I ask fun questions. Just to get some cool interaction and all that. Because you never know what's gonna come out of people's mouths and everything. So, um, I just ask whatever, and sometimes they're funny, sometimes and then we'll kind of ask the final question after that, and then end the show after this part. So let me look for something good here. What would be on the gag reel of your life?
Whoa. Okay. So, so you mean embarrassing moments?
Yeah.
Okay. So, boy, a lot. I have a lot of these when I was a kid, man. I mean, and I have my children laughing about it a lot. I remember one time I was a kid and I was dressed in a suit because I was going to some church event and I was going to be picked up. And so I grew up in public housing. So my building had 14 floors. And by the way, I should speak about uh, my mom, my dad, and I want to mention them. And I also want to mention my brother. I have a younger brother, Derek, and then I also have two twin sisters. So, but in any event, I run out the building. There's a car parked on the street, and everybody's outside. And so I've got on a white suit. The first thing that happens is I attempt to jump the chain link, and my foot gets caught. So I fall. I got on a white suit. So that's number one. Everybody's laughing. It gets worse, Mike. Then I run and I get to the car. I open the car. I get in and I look around, and the people in the car are looking at me like I'm crazy. And I realize I'm in the wrong car. Then I have to get out of the car, and everybody's outside. So it was just very embarrassing. Very, very embarrassing. So that's the one that comes to mind.
Okay, so that would be a gag reel of your life. That is funny, especially you just
Yeah,
got the
you can
wrong.
make a sitcom out of that one, man.
That's like people getting in the wrong Ubers.
Right, right.
Where is the worst smelling place that you've been?
Whew. The worst smelling place I've been. I would say it was probably a pig farm. That was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. And I think I was in North Carolina somewhere.
Interesting. Yeah,
Now,
pigs. They
now,
definitely smell.
on a given day, New York City subways don't smell that great either. So I'd have to add that to them as well. Although it's been a while since I've taken the New York City subway, but I grew up taking the New York City subways, and at times you get some pretty bad smells down there.
Oh yeah. Which fictional character would be the most boring to meet in real life?
Which fictional character would be the most boring to you?
No,
Or
just I'm asking you the question.
okay, would to me would be the most boring in life.
Yeah.
That's a good one, man. I gotta think of a television sitcom. I'm gonna go here, and I know a lot of folks won't agree with me because he was funny, but I have to say Seinfeld, man. I mean, it's extremely funny show, but the guy, his kitchen, he eats nothing but cereal. He's got a bunch of failed relationships. I mean, really, what did he? I mean, he was a stand-up comedian. Perhaps that was good, but the other parts of his life, funny. But I'm like, nah, I wouldn't want to be Seinfeld. Well, I probably would want to be him in real life because he has an enormous car collection.
Oh yeah.
But on the sitcom, his fictional character, I would not want to be.
Most definitely. Yeah, he would definitely be boring in real life. So, what is the best and worst purchases you've ever made?
Okay, so I have to go back. The worst purchase I've ever made was my first car. I was 19 years old. It was an Audi 4000S. I think it was a 1984 Audi 4000S. Not that Audis are bad, they're great cars. But during that time period, those cars had a lot of problems. So you figure this, I'm a 19-year-old kid in college with very little money to begin with. but I want to drive an Audi that's got problems. So, you know, those cars are not cheap to fix. So I remember one time I was driving a car, it mysteriously just cut off in the middle of the street. So I had to have it towed to the auto shop, right? So I get it towed to the auto shop. So the mechanic says, okay, so what we'll do is we'll cut the car on, we'll put the sensors on it, and we'll leave the sensors on it. And when it cuts off, then we'll get the codes and we'll know what the problem is, right? So I was going to work, my part-time job. I left the car with the mechanic at 8:30. He had put the sensors on it. I get back to him at 4:30. The darn car had never cut off. So he couldn't figure out what the problem was. So there I go driving it off again. And within a few days, the same problem happened. So I would say that would have to be my worst purchase. Now, my best purchase, I guess, would be, I'm going to get a lot of brownie points for this one, but it's true. It's my wife's engagement ring because she said yes. And we're now 20 plus years later, and old girl is still with me.
Awesome.
So I would say that's my best purchase.
Awesome. If you had to change your name, what would your new name be, and why would you choose that name?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I would probably, well, my full name is Corey Maurice Turner. So I would probably do some kind of regal name like Sebastian or Miles or something like that. And Miles happens to be my partner's last name, but I like it as a first name as well. So it'd probably be Miles. And maybe I would want something catchy on the back end like McFly or something, you know. So, you know, people would think, is that your real name or is that your professional name? And when you say, no, that's my government name, that's a conversation piece.
Yeah, that's true. What problem or situation did TV or movies make you think would be common, but when you grew up, you found out it wasn't?
Ooh, that's a good one. You know, I would say I would probably focus on where I was born and raised in the inner city and seeing some of the things I saw and how those things were sort of glamorized and popularized in media. And then you get outside of the four corners of your neighborhood and you realize that things are not like this everywhere else, right?
Yeah.
You know, so some of the crime I saw, some of the violence I saw, you know, and thankfully it's not. And that's why I think it's very important that, you know, young children who grow up in certain communities, and it doesn't have to be only inner city urban areas. Similar things happen in rural areas. You know, and those folks, because of the means that they have, they don't get to travel and see the world to really see how things operate outside of the four corners of their neighborhood. And so I would attribute it to that. And yeah. I'm sorry if these are not very good, Mike. You know, this is my first time doing this.
No, it's absolutely fine, man. It's a good time, you know, having a good time with it. And you know, sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. You know, I try to incorporate different elements to the show to make it interesting. I've asked a lot of these questions before, you know, kind of, you know, because you never know what people are gonna say and all that. So I'm gonna ask one more question here, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. So, if you could know the absolute and total truth to one question, what question would you ask?
You know, I'm a true believer that your life starts once you know yourself. Once you truly know yourself. So while a lot of people might say, I'd like the numbers to the lottery, or I would like the trick to how to become a millionaire, I would like to find out what the secret is to becoming wealthy. I would like to know, my one question would be, how do I get to be my highest state of being within myself? Because if I get to the highest state of being within myself, that's where I find total and complete fulfillment. And that's not the same for everybody. That's very individualistic. But I think that's really where it's at, because I think wealth is a state of mind. And that also brings me to when you travel to other countries. Like, we spoke about how frequently we're in the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to countries like the Dominican Republic and you see how people live and how relatively fulfilled they are with seemingly less resources, but at the same time, less stress,
Mm-hmm.
you realize that that answer to the question of complete happiness, fulfillment, and joy is not so simple, right? So I think for me is really understanding how I get to be my best self and achieve my personal highest fulfillment. Because if I can achieve that, I know what direction I need to go in for everything else in my life.
Hey, and there you have it, folks. All the fun questions. Sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're, more thought provoking. But it just kind of gives you a better understanding of each individual person that I interview. So I appreciate you for that.
So,
Now, before we get going here, I'm gonna ask you one last thing. So, what else do you want the world to know about Nomos Cigars before we go?
yeah, so I'd like to briefly talk about the construction of the cigar. So the Nomos 6x56 cigar here, we have a African Cameroon wrapper. Our binder is an Indonesian Sumatran, and our filler is a combination of aged Dominican and Nicaraguan tobacco. All those tobaccos have obviously different flavor profiles. As I said previously, one of the things that we really love about Cameroon, African Cameroon, and as I said, not all Cameroon is created equal. And some of the feedback we've got on our Cameroon is that this is some of the best Cameroon that individuals have tasted. And it's a high quality Cameroon. Is that it's very flavor forward, very good flavor, but no intense, harsh aftertaste. Our cigar is smooth. It's flavorful on the palate, no ashiness on the palate. You're going to get nuances and flavors through each third of the cigar. And, I'm careful to talk about, cedar and cashews and,
Yeah.
chocolate. Look, I get all of that. But to another smoker who really enjoys the cigar, they may get something different. But the bottom line here is it's a beautiful cigar. It is a passion for us, but we also equally as important is the business aspects of making sure that we have a consistent product. The other thing I should mention is that we do sell direct to consumer. I mentioned our website on
Yeah.
www.nomoscigars.com. And I just realized after saying www, my kids are going to kill me when I get home because you don't need to say www anymore. But
Yeah.
I said it, www.nomoscigars.com, right? And there we fulfill out of Florida. Obviously, our cigars are hand rolled in the Dominican Republic. They're imported into our fulfillment warehouse in Clearwater, Florida. And from Clearwater, Florida, they're shipped throughout the country through our orders. And we've been able to perfect our shipping and fulfillment process. Pretty much anywhere in the country, the cigars are at your door within 3 to 4 days after you order online. So we're very, very proud about that consistent delivery record. We haven't had one customer complaint on delivery or the quality of product once it reaches your doorstep. So we're very proud of that. And also follow us on Instagram at
Yes.
NOMOS Cigars.
Awesome. Well, man, it's been a fun show, man. I'm glad I got to learn more about you and your business partner and the whole brand itself. Pretty soon you're gonna be out there, so I'm proud to say that I got the first Nomo cigar interview because I like to be exclusive like that. So it's
Hey,
just gonna
Mike,
keep
though, I'm
it's
going to
just gonna
hold you
keep
to
growing.
something else, man. You got to have us back on when we release the next cigar.
Oh, absolutely, bro. Just hit me up. You got my number, all that. Just let me know, and I will make sure we put you on the schedule as always. I'll have both of y'all on, and Shouts out to my boy Uncle Larry. He just posted here. We got more people chiming in that were just watching, and
Wow, very nice. You know, I have an Uncle Larry as well, so that's a great coincidence.
yeah, Uncle Larry watches like every single week, and sometimes he comments a lot more. People just like to watch sometimes, so that's the fun of the show. And we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. And then once I'm not live, then we can talk that real shit. But if this is your first time watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm getting closer to 500 subscribers on YouTube. Make sure you follow NOMOS Cigars on Instagram. You can go to my story or my page. I have them tagged all over the place now, and do that. And I'll let you know.
And Mike, I'm sorry, you got time for one more thing? I just forgot one
Oh,
more
of
thing.
course.
Okay, I just want to mention a couple of upcoming events in case any of your viewers are in the area. In Rockland County, New York, on May 13th, we're going to be at Steaks, Stogies, and Cannolis, a great event put on by the Sons of Italy, and we'll be there sharing with the people. And you can Google that and you'll find it, but it's going to be in Tallman State Park on May 13th. In addition to that, I will on June 4th and 5th be at the New Jersey Cigar Fest in Woodbridge. So if you're in New Jersey, stop by, check us out. Let's share a cigar. Let's chop it up. And my partner will be at a very, very big cigar fest in the Dominican Republic on June 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Santiago. And it is the inaugural cigar fest there in Santiago. It's going to be huge. A lot of entertainment, a lot of cigar brands there, including yours truly, NOMOS Cigars. And I hear that there may even be a Guinness Book, a World Records event going on there for the most cigar smokers continuously. So that's going to be a great event. So hopefully I'll see some of your viewers there if they're going to be in the area.
Awesome. Well, with that note, make sure if it's your first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button, all the good stuff. And Corey, I'll let you know when we're not live so we can talk that real shit.